So tomorrow, one of the biggest changes that can ever happen in astrology, Pluto will change signs. It will move from Capricorn into Aquarius for the first of 3 ingresses into Aquarius over the next 18 months. Pluto's entering Aquarius tomorrow, Thursday here, 23 March 2023. Stay tuned, I'm going to break a lot of it down. Okay, so Pluto is coming into Aquarius, like I said at the beginning. It's a major deal, Pluto of the modern planets. And I say the modern planets because it's the 20th century planets. In the second half of the 20th century, astronomers and astrologers settled on these 10 planets as the official planets. Of course, they're not the official planets. It's just a symptom of a certain moment of time as our astrology is changing and developing with all the new discoveries, particularly discoveries of Aries and Makemake and Haumea and other dwarf planets that are like Pluto, changed the landscape in the first part of the 21st century. But at the end of the 20th century, we had these 10 official planets. When I was growing up in school, it was always the 7. The traditional astrological planets include the Sun and Moon, and then Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter, and then of course Earth is a planet in the solar system model. And then you had Uranus, Neptune, and then Pluto was included on that list. And these are the planets, right? And so of those modern planets, you might say, Pluto is the slowest moving. It's 250 some odd years to move through the zodiac. And so this would be, from that particular model of late 20th century astrology, the rarest ingress that you can have would be an ingress of Pluto. We have Pluto coming into Aquarius this week, 23 March. What I'm going to do in this video, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, to break this transit down would take many videos. I've done a video with Dan Waits on his channel World Astrology Report called The Astrology of the 2020s. And I forgot the title of the video, but just type in Pluto. This will change your life is what he has in the thumbnail. But we do a deep breakdown into a lot of facets of Pluto and Aquarius. In this video, I'm going to extract what I think is the most important core theme of the whole thing and share that with you and share some additional ideas. Because yeah, this is kind of my, core version of it all. So let's begin. And just to say, with Eris, the discovery of Eris in the early aughts in the 21st century, Eris moves a lot slower than Pluto, but it's a little bit bigger by certain measurements. They're basically the same size. They're both dwarf planets. Eris must be considered, in my view, I think I mentioned that in a recent video, and that moves a lot slower. Eris has been in Aries for like 100 years, and Eris takes a long time to change signs. We'll maybe get that in the 21st century at some point. I forgot exactly, but of the other planets, that are the major contemporary, like I said, Pluto is the longest, slowest moving planet, but Eris, keep in mind, is much slower. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Come in here to the first slide, and I just want to start out. Pluto enters Aquarius March through June with this sneak peek. What we're getting in 2023 is simply a sneak peek because it's going to be 3 different ingresses into Aquarius. So we have 2 sneak peeks. So you will have a sneak peek 2023, March 23rd, 11 June 2023. That's the first Pluto in Aquarius. Then you have 21 January 2024 to 2 September 2024. So you'll have that in most of 2024, the first part of the year, Pluto's in Aquarius. And then it's just a little hint back into Capricorn. 2 September 2024 to 19 November 2024, Pluto's back into Capricorn for the last time. And then it doesn't leave. And finally it leaves for good into Pisces in 2044, 19 January. So that's how long we're here. It's about, a little over 20 years. Pluto in Aquarius, it'll be the defining characteristic with a lot of astrologers and a lot of astrology talking about Pluto in Aquarius. I've been telling people with natal astrology that a lot of people ask me, well, what about Pluto in Aquarius for my chart? And I've been telling folks, I usually use a very tight orb with outer planet, trans-Neptunians, anything beyond Saturn. It's a very tight orb for how I like to practice. So you may have an Aquarius moon, like in the last decan of Aquarius. I think this will affect you a lot more when it gets there in the 2030s. Look for about a 1 degree to 2 degree orb with Pluto. That's about as wide as I would go. But just to come back for the collective energy, we have Pluto and Aquarius. So we'll be getting this right away, right in this sneak peek right here in 2023. What are the major themes of Pluto and Aquarius as I see them? Well, it's death and rebirth. I often tell folks, everybody gets scared about Pluto. I think it's, first of all, I don't want to even categorize it as a benefic or malefic. That's an ancient astrological system of categorizing the planets. Why do we have to put these outer planets that we've discovered since the 18th century in those ancient categories? We don't. To me, it's one of the major follies of contemporary and more modern astrological schools is they try to force in the new discoveries into the old system when there's no reason to do that. You can let the old system operate and then just use, Pluto doesn't have to be categorized as a benefic or malefic. It can just be Plutonic energy. And in my view, it can be very powerful in a positive way. Whole schools of astrology are built around Pluto's power, its positive transformational power, like evolutionary astrology, something I greatly value, because they don't view the planets as like hard and fast, deterministic things. They view them as more invitations to explore the depth of the power of their archetype or their symbology. And to me, that's the best, maybe most powerful and useful way to do astrology, but particularly with these modern outer planets or the modern trans-Neptunian outer planets, which would include Pluto, or dwarf planets, which would include Pluto. So what are the themes? Pluto's death, a lot of people are focused on death, like Pluto, god of the underworld. It was discovered when in between World War I and World War II, near the time of the science of the nuclear bomb that was developed. So I can see that, but it's rebirth more as much as death. You go down to Hades to come back out. A lot of those Greek myths, people go down to get someone or to rediscover someone, and then there's a rebirth after they've seen death. It's kind of like with a psychedelic. If you've taken heroic doses of psychedelics, don't do that, okay? But if you have, you know that you have like these ego death experiences that are really intense, really, really powerful, intense experiences, and then the drug wears off and you're back in normal consciousness. And often those profound ego death experiences can then be integrated and can assist people in coming to terms with their lives. And so it's the rebirth. It's the rebirth of how the Plutonic will make us, transform us. And it's brought up, and this rebirth part of Pluto is brought to the structures of power and the foundations of society, which is Aquarius. So this is the basic technique when anytime the planet's in a sign is you delineate the planet, then you delineate the sign and the ruling planets of that sign, and you combine the energies. So Aquarius is, of course, the hierarchies of power that Saturn implies. It's also the innovative features of Mercury. That's the innovative hierarchies that are the Aquarian. Pluto is going to destroy and recreate those innovative hierarchies. And I think it's through technology and the fourth industrial revolution, which we'll talk about in a later slide. That's the key to this Pluto transit, because Aquarius is technology. It's a key word. From the beginning of the tradition, it comes through that mercurial connection. Vedius Valens, Mercury is innovation. Mercury rules Aquarius by night triplicity. So it's these innovative hierarchies, and we see all the innovation we're living through now in the last 3 years with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. All of the new tech, we're all online, AI, all of it. And now as Pluto's about to hit Aquarius, that's going to just deepen and accelerate. And then I have here exploring the nature of being vis-a-vis technology, finding the deepest meaning of what it means to have incarnated as a human being. This is really what I'm going to focus on. This third point is the key point for me, is that Pluto in Aquarius will transform the foundations of society, but by resurrecting the core essence of being for the human self. And this is why the sun is exiled in Aquarius. I have it here. It's a very important point. The sun is the consciousness of being. The sun is the light of the self. And when the sun is exiled in a sign, for example, it rules Leo. So when it comes through Aquarius, it's opposite the sign it rules. It doesn't have the strength that it does in Leo. That sun is forced to invent itself anew and come to terms with itself through unorthodox mechanisms and methodologies. My favorite keyword for planets in exile or fall is unorthodox, because they have to exercise themselves in ways that are not as natural. So what it means in this case is that the light of spirit and consciousness, while Pluto's in Aquarius, that will have to reinvent, adapt, and kind of dig deeper to make that light shine in ways that maybe it's not as used to or as comfortable. And as you'll see in the video, the examples, it becomes quite clear. Revolution in the name of humanity is one of the key themes of Aquarius when Pluto's been in Aquarius, because the sun is fighting for its life. Who am I? What am I? No, we're going to push back against the hierarchies of society and those structures to find that light of the beingness, and then raise that up, and then bring the societal structures to honor that light of beingness. And so this is a major, major theme. Okay, the next slide is I want to quote here, zodiacxfiles.com. This is someone named Curtis Manwaring. He wrote the software called, I forgot, it's a Hellenistic software, Delphic Oracle. And he's got a cool website, zodiac-x.files.com, but he has a write-up on the sun in Aquarius and what that means. And I just wanted to read some of his take on the sun in Aquarius. He says, in some instances when the sun is afflicted here, the individual's sense of purpose, identity, and personal validity are challenged to the point where his or her only choice is to become a rebel or to live controversially. As I said in the paragraph above, this person may feel at odds with the world. If the sun has benefic aspecting, then the native will overcome these odds to some extent and work more cooperatively. Sometimes this position is indicative of enlightenment because the light pierces through the darkness of its lord, Saturn. And that's what I was just saying. It has to have innovative adaptability to bring that light through the challenge, to shine through Saturn and have this kind of new sense of self and being and humanity. And that's what we're trying to do with Pluto, with Aquarius. And then when Pluto comes, it's like deepening that at a very profound level where it will transform Aquarius so that we have discovered the selfhood and the light of being in a more deep and profound way. What did I have here? Exploring the nature of being, finding the deepest meaning of what it means to have incarnated as a human being. Sun exiled in Aquarius, so it was just the same point on that last slide. So what we're going to do is look at the last 2 times Pluto was in Aquarius to discuss, describe, and deepen on this theme. And the first one I'll go to, the farthest back in time, is the 16th century Pluto and Aquarius revolutions that shook the foundations of society. The key example here is the English Reformation. So the Protestant Reformation emerges around this time, but there's many events that are highly important when Pluto was in Aquarius. And I have here the Protestant movement challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. So you can see the Aquarian is the structure and hierarchy of society. That was the Catholic Church. When Pluto came to Aquarius, there were these revolts against the orthodoxy of the church. And so in this case, you had the Reformation Parliament in England, 1532 through 1534, passed laws abolishing papal authority. There's that rebel spirit. In England, declared Henry VIII to be the head of the Church of England. Final authority in doctrinal disputes now rested with the monarch. And so the thing is that hierarchy that existed was pushed back against, and there was rebelling that took place. Now, the King Henry, the case may be more of a power move and a power struggle, but it would still fit against the rebel theme. But this is the key, the kernel of the idea that I want to bring in is that the Reformation had this core concept. Each person has direct access to God through prayer and could achieve salvation without the intermediation of the church hierarchy. That's the breakthrough, the Aquarian breakthrough, the Pluto and Aquarius breakthrough of the Reformation, was that the human being came with innovative and adaptable versions of what it meant to be alive, and then changed reality based on those new versions of how the self and the humanity was contrived in terms of how we thought about what we needed with the hierarchy. We didn't need it anymore. You could go right to God. And so it reinvented and redeployed a new, rejuvenated human potential and power. That's what Pluto did. It transformed and was reborn. The notion of what a human being is. Now the next example is in the 18th century, the Pluto and Aquarius transit. There was revolutions that shook the foundations, or shaking foundations. 2 main revolutions let's look at. The American Revolution, 22 March 1765 through 15 December 1791, so Pluto and Capricorn, Pluto and Aquarius. The French Revolution, 1789 to 1799, so Pluto and Aquarius, and I think it was peaked right into Pisces right as it ended. But these were two revolutions that were based on Enlightenment thought. And this Enlightenment period, again, hits on the key point, the human spirit being reconfigured and reborn. The nature of what it means to be a human being vis-a-vis and against the backdrop of these societal hierarchies or the dominant discourses in society. Reinvention and rejuvenation of self. The Enlightenment period, which spanned the 17th and 18th century, many thinkers began to question the tradition of the authority structures of the time, including the authority of the church and the monarchs. So this isn't the Protestant Reformation, but this is more about political organization. That instead of having the church and monarchs being all powerful and their edicts being, juridical and just they can do whatever you want and say whatever you want, and you have to follow what their demands. There was notions that there was an emphasis on individual rights and freedoms, as well as the belief that all people had inherent worth and dignity. John Locke argued that people had natural rights to life, liberty, and property, and these governments formed to protect these natural rights. You're born with unalienable rights, right? That's right out of the Declaration of Independence. This is the key, again, changing the nature of who the self is, what it means to be alive, a human being. No, I have these unalienable rights that you can never take away. It's so Platonic. It's such a simple kernel of an idea. That's what Pluto can be, a small idea that when it's allowed to fully be itself, these ideas come to its power, it can change everything. So the notion is that human beings are born with the right to life. I mean, how simple is that? Or the right to liberty. You can't take it away. No government or monarch can ever take that away. It's natural to you when you're born. And so these are just two examples of the Pluto and Aquarius, the kernel of an idea about what it means to be a human being, transforming the structures of society. So it begs the question, doesn't it? What is the current hierarchy that's dominant that we'll resist against with this Pluto and Aquarius transit? What is the new understanding of our humanity that will then challenge and transform the hierarchies that are extant now as we sit here with Pluto and Capricorn? And so I just wanted to throw some ideas out here. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, this is an exploration, but our current society is dominated by something called scientism largely. And I just pulled up this Big Think article. What is scientism and why is it a mistake? Science is a method of inquiry about nature, while scientism is a philosophy. And scientism is no longer up to the challenge of meeting the most pressing issues of the day. So science is just a method, an analytical model where you think and rethink and have a hypothesis and test it, and where scientism is kind of a worshiping of science or scientists or people that hold themselves out as being the arbiters of scientific truth, and they have the kind of say within the society. I think we've come to a place where scientism is quite dominant. You might also call it positivism, the idea that there is no soul and that everything can be seen outside of us and measured. This kind of scientistic, positivistic way of being in the world. The Cartesian model, right? That everything can be external and known, that we can witness. And so it really removes the notion of intuition and the idea that consciousness might be non-local, or that we're at some kind of mystical sea of oneness. All of those ideas get thrown to the side, and then you have these kind of a cult of science, a cult of scientism that controls the society. So this is one I'm thinking may be in line for some reform. And you see this with things like studies, psychedelic studies. I come back to psychedelics, but even studies with like psychokinesis or ESP. There's a lot of science that's being done showing that that's a real phenomenon. So maybe some of that will push back against these regimes of scientism. Then what I have here, this is the study from Princeton. I believe this is 2014. The USA is an oligarchy study concludes. Report by researchers from Princeton and Northwestern University suggests that the U.S. political system serves special interest organizations instead of voters. So there's a kind of non-democratic dominant system that is the empire, right? The empire never ended, as Philip K. Dick says, but we're in an empire, let's just face it. We're in an oligarchy empire. That's my political belief based on these studies, and I think it's pretty convincing. My experience in life shows us that. Empire of scientism and, bought and sold for controlled truth, effectively, to serve the interests of oligarchs. I don't want to get too political here. I try to avoid that, but this begs the question, a Pluto and Aquarius video, of what is this dominant structure? That's why I'm bringing this up. I'm trying to answer it, just share with you how I would answer that. Now, there's all kinds of stuff. You probably have your own ideas, and I'm not trying to totalize with mine here. I'm just offering what I would think. And we all have different ideas about what this may be. I'd be curious to be as to what you would think. You can put it in the comments if you want. But with this, I'm thinking here that it's multipolarity. I do think we're seeing the rise of the BRICS bloc. We're seeing new competing currencies to the U.S. dollar dominated system. The system of the USD being the global reserve currency tied to the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia is now trading, maybe joining BRICS, so the whole regime of the structure of the system, you might say, the empire post-World War II, is in line to be pushed back against and radically transformed. And I'm not going to go too much into that. Check out the video I did with Dan Waits. Go to World Astrology Report, S.J. Anderson, Pluto. Just type that in, and that will get you there, I think. Okay, I just want to briefly bring in, because technology is such a essential component of the Aquarian, we have to check in with these new technologies that are coming online, because Pluto in Aquarius is going to transform our reality vis-a-vis this new technology. AI is a perfect example. So much of content now is generated by AI. AI is creating beautiful art. I'm sorry, I'm an advocate of AI art. I think the AI collaborative artists are doing some really cutting edge and cool stuff. I'm not talking about ripping off just something that's out there and ripping off someone's copyright. I'm talking, there's real artists out there working with the tool where they're running it through multiple AIs. They have creative prompts. They're creating and generating art that's unique in their own style. That is, just like Claire Silver is a woman who is kind of one of the most important artists right now, an AI collaborative artist. Just go check out her work. Type in Claire Silver. She's got a style and a voice and a tone, and it's unique to her. AI is just a tool that she's using to generate that stuff. So I'm a big fan of the AI art, but let's go into some of these others. This is a tweet from a long time ago, the 12 emerging technologies from the Fourth Industrial Revolution, going right to the World Economic Forum website, because they pioneered this and kind of branded it as Fourth Industrial Revolution. Here's just a few of them: 3D printing, advanced materials and nanomaterials, artificial intelligence and robotics, biotechnologies, energy capture and storage and transmission. So just on those, we've already seen in 2020. This was, I think, a tweet, and this article is from pre-COVID. But we've seen during the COVID years when Saturn was in Aquarius with Jupiter, biotechnologies, that's mRNA technologies. Energy capture, storage, and transmission, that's Tesla and all the battery stuff they're doing. Artificial intelligence and robotics, that's ChatGPT and Dream Studio and Stable Diffusion and all the stuff I was just talking about. Advanced materials and nanomaterials, I'm not as keen on that, or I haven't seen that. 3D printing seems really promising. I haven't seen a lot of breakthroughs with that recently. I think that'll be interesting if you can just print a home. That's I'm most excited about solving the houselessness problem by using 3D printing, cheap materials, and you can print homes for everybody. Wouldn't that be cool? Blockchain and distributed ledger, obviously the rise of Bitcoin has been very important recently, and in the time of Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter in Aquarius. Geoengineering is really interesting. I mean, I'll set that aside, but there's been talk of like dimming the sky to save us from the warming. Some of that seems really dystopian to me. I think China has like an artificial sun I've seen in the news. Ubiquitous linked sensors. That's interesting. Internet of Things, where everything has a data and a sensor and talks to it. They talk to each other at all times. Like it will be able to know if your water is low, and then it'll automatically order water, and then it'll be a drone delivery. It's constant talking amongst the objects in the home. That's kind of dystopian too. Neurotechnology. So this is where you have something like the chip that can go into the brain, the Neuralink, Elon Musk's company. That's a little scary and sketchy to me. I saw that some monkeys died in the last year. They were trying to put the chip in the brain of the monkey. But that's, 20 years is a long, long time. All of this stuff could get way more advanced in this 20-year period. New computing technologies, quantum computing, that's always being talked about. Space technologies, I think China just released footage that they're claiming is them in space. That looks a little weird if you check that footage out. But still, there's with the other Elon Musk company that it's launching, those rockets are launching all the time. SpaceX, I think it's what it's called. Virtual and augmented realities. This is one that is interesting. I'm not as up to speed on this, but these are all the kind of new technologies that are going to come online that our humanity, and this is really what I want to say, our selfhood will be forced to power through these changes. Like the nature of your being, the nature of my being as just breath of life, right? That's what spiritus is in the Latin, breath of life. The fact that I'm just breathing involuntarily. I have a spirit and a soul, and that is in my human incarnation. What does Bob Dylan say in one of his last record and one of the songs? It's the immortal spirit. Everybody's got what they call the immortal spirit. You know, it seeps in your body the day you're born, I think is what he says. So we're born with this spirit. By the way, that's when astrologers time your birth charts, that first moment of ensoulment of that first breath, where, you know, it creeps in your body the day you're born, is the Dylan line. And so we're here with this immortal spirit and this breath of life. How is that, and this is my main thing, how are we going to come to know that in a more essential way as these new technologies come online? And I think it's a great opportunity, because just like I was sharing about in my last video with the AI writing, it helped me understand what it means to actually write and what it means. And I saw some comments about that. Thanks for those comments. I was thinking, it's more like channeling. Writing is like channeling. It just, if something flows through, there's some other thing that the brain, we have this very powerful technology of the spirit where we can kind of channel words and just make the text. And even with editing, I find when I edit, it comes out the way that the cadence and the flow of how I like to organize words, you know. And that's something that's it's almost a gut level or spiritual experience. And I learned that through using AI to write and trying to play with it. And I still like it. It can generate ideas. It's good for that. It can get some crude first drafts, but it's nowhere near a finished product. But this is an example of how, as we move through these new technologies coming online, we will discover anew the core and essential essence of the self and the human being and the spirit, and what that really, the power of that, the great power of that. And so that's why I want to walk through this, because let's just go through an example. If we talk about, I don't know, neurotechnologies or some of the biotechnologies, I mean, there might be something where, you know, we have an augmented, like let's say my glasses, all of a sudden they have screens 24/7. You know, I might take that off and say, no, I prefer this screen. I prefer just seeing the tree unadulterated. You know, we might learn that there's some great power to not having the digital adulteration and the obfuscation of the self and the consciousness and the vision. Okay, and this is really where it comes for me. Kurzweil claims the singularity will happen in 2045. Get ready for humanity 2.0. This is a Futurism magazine article from 2017. And Ray Kurzweil, the famous transhumanist futurist, has been claiming for a while, it's 2045 is the date when the AIs will get so advanced that they will be sentient, and then we all just upload our consciousness to the cloud, and then that's it. We can live forever. That's sort of his vision. And the reason why I always bring this up, and I've been bringing it up in a lot of videos the last couple of years, is because 2045 is right around that time that Pluto leaves Aquarius. So Kurzweil is saying basically all of Pluto in Aquarius will be the acceleration into a singularity point where we can live forever because of this kind of techno-utopia. And I'm not saying he's right or it's even true, but I do think when you start seeing resonances with experts and timing, that we just have to keep in mind that at least there's people that are working in the system. There's people that are very powerful, moneyed, and that are working here to sort of bring this about, or they believe this will be brought about. Kurzweil, for example, worked for Google. So, you know, there's powerful institutions that have this philosophy. And, you know, Pluto's in Aquarius, they may even know, or there's probably some astrologers, I imagine, that have that knowledge that are part of those conversations. You know, but for me, Humanity 2.0 is simply our humanity gets reborn. The true humanity will get reborn through all of this. And we're going to have a new Declaration of Independence, a new Reformation, right? Where we say, no, my fundamental nature of my being is central, and I know it now better than I've ever known it, and now my institutions will reflect that. So maybe we'll see like tech-free zones emerge. I mean, I think that would be a wonderful thing. Put your cell phone aside and we mingle in a park without any digital technologies together, old school. It would be kind of like a conscious relating and sort of a pure human. I think we'll see more things like that. And then we'll get to discover again, like human intimacy, the real intimacy, eye gazing, crying in front of people, real deep and profound connection and intimacy. That is the real stuff, The technology, another way to say this, think about your own life. Let me just put it this way. Think about your own life. I think about mine. I'm on the internet all the time. And there's a lot of times I'm just like, damn, I hate this. I want to just get rid of it. In fact, in 2019, I spent, 2018, summer 2018, I spent a month on a farm in Belarus doing yoga teacher training. And I didn't have a phone. I turned it off. I did not have a cell phone. It was 22 days. It wasn't a month. I remember I was on Twitter, Astro Twitter at the time. That was my early Astro Twitter days. And I was like, hey, everybody, I won't be tweeting for 22 days. I had some scheduled tweets, so look for those. And I went off for 22 days, and I think back on just how even special that was. I was living in a tent on the farm in the middle of nowhere in rural Belarus, working on a farm. It taught me so much about humanity because, I had to work. I was doing hard labor, doing yoga all the day, cooking. I learned so much about my humanity and my selfhood without the technology. And I can see, I want to do another one. Now my whole job's online, so I'd have to figure out a way to figure that out. But I'd have to figure out a way to figure it out. But I'd have to figure out a way to pull it off. But this, I think, will become more popular. We're going to see the kind of omnipresence of digitization and be like, some of us are going to be like, no, I want to go back. So I'm like a late millennial, or I'm a young, old millennial, let's say. My generation is the beginning of the first millennials. And I remember everything, rotary phones, anything you can think of, I remember, without the internet. And there's this nostalgia. And so I think there will be an increase of that. There will be people that never have lived offline. They were given a tablet or a cell phone at like 2 or 3, and they're going to be curious, what is it like to not have this mediated digitization? So look for that. I think that'll be a part of it. Now, I'm very pro-technology, as you know. I'm using AI a lot. I like it. I love the internet. And so for me, it's more about a modulation and a finding our way through so that we use the best of the technologies, even the health stuff like biotech and all that. I'm not opposed to it, generally speaking. I just think we have to be careful that we don't change ourselves and then there's no going back, or we do things that we can't take back. You know what I'm saying? We have to walk carefully and slowly with this stuff. But there's all kinds of tech breakthroughs that can help humanity and help us feed humanity and uplift humanity. But it's finding our way through here is going to be the task. We may need to modulate with a D-Tech world and then include the tech in and figure out that balance. Okay, and just I want to remind us, there is the dates of the Ray Kurzweil. It's 19 January 2044, and his date is 2045. So that's the key point of this slide. Here's an AI generated art. I kind of like this one. This is just a bearded dude in prayer. Someone's commenting on my beard. Yeah, I like growing out a beard. I think it connects me to, it's just a style thing, more than anything. But there it is. I also like that this bearded guy's in prayer, getting in touch with that spiritual essence. And then you've got the sun here, which is what we talked about earlier. The sun is having to innovate to work through this major change of the plutonic rebirth of the self and of humanity against the backdrop of the structures of society and the authority structure of society. Okay, I just wanted to point out, to really do this, I wanted to go break down, like, here are the 10 Pluto and Aquarius transits I'm looking at over the next 20 years. It just was too much and I didn't have time to do that. But I did want to pull up the Saturn-Pluto cycle and just key everybody in to the major dates of the Saturn-Pluto cycle. So the square, Saturn in Taurus will square Pluto in Aquarius in 2028. It's a triple pass square, June 2028, November 2028, and March 2029. That's going to be a big deal. Every astrologer will be talking about the Pluto-Saturn square because the Pluto-Saturn conjunction happened in January 2020 when COVID started spreading. And now you have the square. So this could be any number of challenges, obstacles, and difficulties that will emerge around this kind of truth of Saturn. This might be a time when real revolutions start happening. If there is a new revolution, this might be a time when you have it in full force, you know, revolts and revolutions all over the world. The next transit is the opposition between Saturn and Pluto. That's October 2035. That's Saturn and Leo opposing Pluto and Aquarius. That's also a triple pass. That is Saturn, 1st January 2036, and then 28 July 2036. At the same time, Jupiter's squaring Pluto from Taurus. So it'll be the next Jupiter in Taurus after 2023. That will be a fixed T-square with Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. Wow, that's going to be wild. That could be even more of the upheaval or revolutions. I mean, this is my key word I'm thinking about in terms of the mundane astrology, is revolutions in the outer reality with Pluto and Aquarius. And that's why I'm just keyed in with these T-squares and squares as being about that. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to put in 2 of my recent tweets. These were really popular. You know, tweeting about Pluto and Aquarius, everybody wants to hear about it. This is the thing as a Twitter astrologer. Those of you who are on Twitter and growing your profile there, it's good to tweet about the transits that are unfolding. People want to have your voice in the mix, and they want to have commentary on the big transits that are unfolding. So don't hesitate. Throw it out there, what you're seeing. You know, give people kind of what they want. And I don't mean like in a pop astrology way. I mean just in, you know, feeding the curiosity of the moment. It's kind of riding the waves of intensity of the moment. That's what I love about Twitter, because these transits come, and then you can provide your knowledge and your wisdom about them into this sort of collective. But here was the first tweet. Pluto enters Aquarius on Thursday for the first time since 1798. Astrologers have talked about a French Revolution redux. And here we are on the eve of the week of the ingress, with protests growing in Paris, the president being likened to a king. All over Twitter, there was people saying, guillotines, bring them back. My French astrologer that I know was pointing out that they were calling Macron Jupiter when he got elected. I remember that. So they're kind of putting him in this regal elite, kind of kingly, godly status. And now they're saying off with his head. I was tweeting about this, I think, on Sunday. Here we are on Wednesday. And there's now it's growing protests in the countryside, with their shutting down petrol stations. I mean, this could grow, even though Macron won the no confidence vote. It's just something to keep on your radar. And it's not just France, it's all over the world. People have been showing me the Netherlands and a bunch of other places with a lot of pushback and protest. It's a 20-year Pluto and Aquarius transit. I'm thinking there will be more protests coming, especially as some of these tech structures maybe get forced on society, something like a CBDC, where your money is programmed and there's no cash, and it's highly controlled. That's happening in Nigeria right now. If that starts to be implemented in a wider scale, I think there will be pushback just naturally. You know, I mean, think if you can't even like pay your grandson $20 for a graduation present, that the CBD doesn't allow that, or that if there's some kind of, it's this highly controlled economic activity that I don't think is good for freedom and for democracy and for just the free movement of people and the free exercise of economic rights. And then the next tweet I have here is Pluto enters Aquarius tomorrow, and I'm keenly aware that charts for both Russia and China have early Aquarius moons. And then this was the news from yesterday. Putin and Xi met for this major thing, and they signed this cooperation agreement. And if you read it, it's really kind of powerful. They're like, we're going to trade with each other. We're not going to trade with the West. It's like yuan-dominated economic activity, and a whole block where Russia has basically said, yeah, we're joining a yuan currency regime for a large swath of the global South and the whole world, Asia, Africa, South America. A lot of countries are included in this kind of emerging multipolarity around the economic system. This was a huge story. And Pluto enters Aquarius tomorrow, 2 days after this agreement was signed. And so these two countries have Aquarius moons very early. America's Sibley chart has an Aquarius moon. It's in the later degrees. But this kind of geopolitical reformation is part of the Pluto and Aquarius themes I was raising earlier. It's part of the revolution against the dominant structure of society. And you're going to see this emergence here of new power struggles against, you might call it, the Western Empire. Okay, that's it. That's the Pluto and Aquarius video. I hope you enjoyed it. There's a whole lot here, isn't there, to cover, and there's a whole lot to talk about. I've done my best to give you kind of the keys that I think are some of the keys right now. I'll be talking about it a lot more because we're going to be living through it. So every video, starting in November 2024, every video after that will have Pluto and Aquarius. And it's big because we have multiple ingresses. We have 5 total, from into Aquarius, back to Capricorn, into Aquarius, back to Capricorn, and then into Aquarius finally. So from now until November 2024, there's 4 more after this video. And I'll be talking about them and including them in my transit updates. But thanks for being here. Great to see you. SJAnderson144.com is my website. Go there, check out my reading schedule. Have a wonderful ingress. Enjoy this upcoming waxing phase of the lunation. Check out my last video on the new moon in Aries. I talked about some of the cool charts I'm looking for over the next 2 weeks. Enjoy those charts, and I'll be back at some point with some more videos. Take care. Talk soon.